Okay, let me refresh again.
I hit start streaming. There we go. Hello, guys. Y'all here? No? Also, no.
No.
It said it was working on my thing.
It's there, it's there.
Woo! Hi, guys. Technical difficulties because Rose does not work well with technology. So, sorry about that. It's gonna take a few minutes for it to catch up. I can see now. But I guess we should start with intros. Hi, this awkward voice who has no circle around their name because I'm not really there is Rose. Dragon Rose, on Wattpad. She, her pronouns.
She, her pronouns. Hi, this ugly looking peacock is Cat or Sheare on Wattpad. Credits to Gremlin, by the way.
Alright, and I am DSTE, also known as Maple. I'm the admin of the GRA on Wattpad, so some of you guys might know me from there. And a bunch of other stuff, too.
Is it my turn? I don't know things.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm ImberLapis. You can call me Imber. I'm the one with the best small bean icon. Precious boy. And I do many things, but mostly graphic making, and I try to update once in a while.
Same. Then it says Trevor's on. They're PumpkinHead and he pronouns, but we haven't heard anything from their side. His side. Ignore me saying. Whoa! I got a very faint voice.
I'm sorry. My computer's acting up, but can you hear me?
Okay,
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're very quiet.
Wait, who
We'll
that?
just go on and you can join in whenever you're back.
Alright.
Oh, I love this Snorlax meme.
I've got many memes that I downloaded just for this. Alright, so how y'all doing? We've changed the times so many times that I'm not sure what's going on anymore. But our first subject of the matter is changes of Wattpad, because many of us have been here for a few years.
And how it's horrible now?
That's not what I was going to say.
Let's
but
start with the premium
your opinion.
service.
I mean,
Just kidding.
In the fandom, we're basically dead now. That's been a change.
That seems like an exaggeration to me.
Oh yeah, no, it is. I'm dead. That's the thing. And am I not the entire fandom? I'm kidding. Please, I'm kidding. I have no humor, so.
Alright, so I'm actually the one here who's been on Wattpad for the longest, I believe.
Who?
Me, DSTE/Maple. So yeah. I've been on Wattpad for, I think it's over 5 years now, because it was 5 years last December. So, back when I joined the site, it was a lot different. And, I mean, it was different in a lot of ways, but I remember that when I first joined, the fanfic was completely dominated by One Direction. Like, it was nearly impossible to find any fanfic on the site that was not a One Direction fanfic. And I remember that you had to hunt and try and find something that wasn't One Direction.
What is it now that's like the majority of... Still bands, I assume, so...
K-pop, but I mean, the thing is, it's a lot easier today to find things that aren't the most popular fanfic thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Because back in the day, you had basically the Discover tab with all the genres, and that's where people went to find stuff to read. There weren't a lot of other options. I don't remember if they had tags at all, or if the tags just weren't really working very well.
Wow.
Okay, just to say, I really appreciate the GIF right now.
Thank you. I try.
So yeah, it was really difficult to find anything to read, and these were the days when Blue Lightning and Journey to the Past were the most popular Pokemon fanfics. And I think that was mostly because they were the ones that had gotten discovered and had managed to get enough traction that people could still keep finding them.
I never read Journey to the Past, but I read Blue Lightning.
Yeah, I read them both because they were both entered into the first Pokemon Waddy Awards, which I managed to find my way into.
Nice.
So the very first Pokemon WADI Awards was also really different because it was completely based on user votes.
I remember that. It was weird.
Yeah, so it was just like a couple different
it still
users.
isn't?
No, it's not. It's based on judges now.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Cat. Completely undermined you.
Yeah, you're talking to so many PWA people here, and you don't remember all the work we do.
What work?
Oh,
And anyway,
You try? I'm kidding.
so anyway, the first PWA had like 20 fics or something in it, and you basically just entered, and they had the comment section, and people would just vote for you in the comments, and that was it.
yeah, I
So-
remember. Master of Illusions also won Romance with I Hate Everything About You. That was the first
Right.
book I ever read.
That's what won Romance, and Blue Lightning won Adventure, and Journey to the Past got second place. And I just remember being really happy about that. Not because I thought Blue Lightning was the best of all of the entries in the adventure category, but because it was so much better than Journey to the Past, and I was glad that didn't win.
Understandable. Understandable.
If you guys haven't read Journey to the Past, I'd recommend just giving it a look for old time's sake to see what used to be popular in the old days of the site.
Why is it
But
bad?
If you think that some of the books now that are really popular are bad, just look at how popular that one
Like,
is.
I think Blue Lightning is bad, in my opinion.
And what
I like
I
Blue
just
Lightning,
told you
but
that
again, a 13-year-old
Past
wrote
is
it.
significantly worse than Blue Lightning, so take that to mean something. And I'm also speaking kind of freely because I know that the author is not on the site anymore.
It's all we can
Um,
rip it to shreds.
But anyway, I think that's a great example of like books that got popular just because it was so difficult to find good Pokemon fanfics or anything that wasn't like One Direction or the most popular whatever on the site. And I feel like one of the things that Wattpad has been doing in recent years is making a real effort to try to make the site more friendly for, you know, users that are more niche or for helping users to find what they actually want to read.
Oh, that makes sense. I don't know.
So-
For some reason, I feel like I'm struggling a bit when it comes to it, because I'll, like, look up Pokemon, and I'll mostly get RPs.
And I'm going to be getting to that.
I'll tell you.
But I'm sort of leading into that.
Oh, okay.
'Cause what it used to be was, like I said, you would click on Discover and you would click on Fanfic and it would be like 100, 200, 300, however long you wanted to scroll until you gave up of like One Direction and like all these trash things that you didn't even want to see.
Yep.
And that's not me calling One Direction trash. I'm talking about other things that were trash that are like books that just barely made it under Wattpad's content guidelines type of trash. You know what I mean?
I
I
sometimes
know what you
forget
mean.
that there are content guidelines.
Or books that violated the content guidelines and hadn't gotten taken down yet. Those were up there in the hot list as well.
Oh, God. I remember a few of those.
Yeah. So I remember back in the day there was actually an effort on the part of some Pokemon author to
Pull
try
my
to
headphone
get
out.
Wattpad to separate the genres of fanfic
yeah.
into real person fanfic and actual fanfic.
They had a petition going and everything.
They did, yes. And Wattpad never did it, but I think that Scarlet actually got a response from them that said that they weren't doing it because they were working on some other changes.
Like putting premium in, I bet.
Yeah. But other changes that would, you know, help people to be able to find different kinds of fanfic easier, which I think is what they have been doing over the past few years. So if you'll notice on the site now, instead of clicking on the fanfic and having the hot list of all the books in fanfic, you actually don't get a hot list there at all anymore. It's been completely replaced by the new tag rankings. Which I don't know if you guys were paying a lot of attention when that was announced, but I thought it was really interesting and like a really significant change to how
I only knew the
Wattpad works.
rankings were a thing when like I got a message and like, congrats, Heart is still being #1 in like Pokemon, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. That's brand new. So instead of like being #1 in fanfic, which is something that only the fewest of the few people would ever get a chance to have their story actually ranked in fanfic,
Yeah.
now you get your story ranked in whatever tag is relevant to your book.
Yeah.
So
I usually
mean-
get #1 in, like, things that only have like 5 other books in them because I'm like, oh, obviously this is the tag people search, and there are only like 5 things under that tag.
The thing is though, Rose, when it tells you 500, that's not actually how many books have that tag on them.
Oh, we lost someone.
Hopefully they'll come back. But yeah, when it says like you're number 2 out of 500 or whatever, you're not actually number 2 out of 500 total books that have that tag. You're 2 out of the top 500 because it only shows a percentage of books that have that tag in the first place. So in order for you to be ranked at all, it's already an accomplishment.
Okay, that's blown my mind now.
And these are things I found out through research.
I don't do research. I just sit there and grumble.
Oh my god, I'm back. Okay, my internet just like cut out.
Welcome back.
Hey. So yes, I have set out to do some research, and I've also done some research in the past because I'm actually really curious about algorithms, and I actually care a lot about trying to optimize, especially for the Gotta Read 'Em All Club account. Because I really feel like the Gotta Read 'Em All Club is an important account for the fanfic community. So, you know, I'm sort of wanting people who are first coming into our community to be able to find our account, to find sort of, I see it as kind of like a gateway into the community so they can find, you know, some popular authors and some reading suggestions and, you know, sort of get a place to get started, maybe get feedback if that's what they're looking for.
Oh yeah,
things like that.
And they've really changed from what they were originally, but now like I wish there was something like the GRA when I first came here because I was lost and confused.
That's also something that was not there when I first started, yeah. And we've also been expanding a lot over the years and trying to really improve and offer new services and things. But yeah, so I've done research to try to get the GRA to have, you know, better positions and things.
So,
and then
sorry.
Yeah. Did you have a question or?
I would say, how could maybe authors who can't gain as much traction on their own right now or just starting out, how could they utilize the algorithm to their advantage?
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm going to get into, and it's not at all impossible for starting authors. It's actually, the system is actually built so that starting authors are given a very good chance.
Nice.
So anyway, I'm talking about like the new tag rankings, which I see as not really like a thing to replace the hot list as such, the old genre ones, because they're actually much less important than that. But I think that they have, you know, obviously the old genre hot lists are gone, but they have sort of ushered in this new mentality of how to find books to read on the site.
Okay.
Which I actually sent out a survey through my profile asking people to tell me, how do you actually find books to read on the site? Because, you know, we can talk about the algorithm all day long, but if nobody's actually using the things that are generated by the algorithm, then what good is it? And also, there's actually several different algorithms, which I'm also going to get into. So I sent out this survey with a lot of different options for different ways you can find books on the site, because there are a lot of them. Unfortunately, I only got 12 responses, so that's not exactly statistically significant, but it can tell you a little bit about like what people are using versus what they're not using at all. So 7 out of 12 people use the search bar to try to find results, which kind of makes sense.
I'm one of the 7.
4 out of 12 use the genres under the Discover tab, which now that the hot list is gone, you have to click onto that and either click onto a tag from there or click like new or rising or something like that to find anything there. 3 out of 12 use the Wattpad picks lists, which I think only show up on the website and not in the app, but these are like the featured stories that people from Wattpad actually select.
Ah.
Yeah. Then only 2 out of 12 use the official reading list that Wattpad puts out in like the fanfic profile and places like that. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but actually one of my books is featured in the fanfic profile reading list.
Ooh, fancy.
Oh yeah, I remember they did that with the hacker ones. Yeah, that's super cool. I went through there just to see like all of the different genres the fanfic recommendations have, like the official count.
Mm-hmm.
It is so cool like how diverse they are, and you can find your little niche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but only 2 out of the 12 people said that they use that. Only 1 out of 12 people said that they look at the ads that are in the forums.
Oh, look who we have!
Hey, Nix.
Hey.
Their picture isn't on here. Okay, there's their face. Okay, my laptop's being weird with showing their face, so okay.
No.
Wait, who's that?
It's Nix!
Hi.
I'm so honored to be in your presence, oh great graphic maker one.
Oh my god, stop.
Alright, so, yeah, there's a place in the forums where it's only on the website again, but you can go there and actually post like an advertisement of your book there. But only 1 out of 12 people actually said they look at that. And now we're going to get into some of the more interesting ones, which this is a pretty good percentage of people. 7 out of 12 winners of contests like the Waddies or the Pokemon Waddies. 7 more people, friends reading lists, so they actually look at the reading lists of people that they're friends with on the site and get books from there. Another 7 books by people who interacted with me, so like I leave a comment on your book and you're like, oh, who's this person? And then you go read one of my books just because you're curious. 8 out of 12 books that are recommended by other users, like friends of yours or reviewers, like the GRA. Another 8 by watching their newsfeed, so the people they follow and what they're reading. So all of these categories are like, you know, reading suggestions that are driven by actual people on the site rather than algorithms. So one thing to remember right off the bat is that, you know, Wattpad, while the algorithm is important, it's definitely a very social place, and all of the things that all of us are doing actually count a lot. So another 8 out of 12 are Wattpad curated ones, which are like the top of your newsfeed or the homepage where it shows all kinds of books that Wattpad is selecting and recommending for you. And only 2 of the people are actually using the tag rankings to find books to read.
Yeah, I did try to look through those once, and it was just kind of...
But the thing is, the reason that only 2 of those people are doing it is because I asked the question in a way to make it absolutely certain that they're actually using that list as opposed to a different list. Because I don't think you guys realize this, but the tag rankings where it shows like, hey, you're number 2 in Pokemon, you can only look at those if you click on a tag that's at the bottom of a book like yours.
Yeah,
or
figure that out.
If you're on the homepage and you happen to have that tag in your homepage as a tag that Wattpad recommends to you,
oh, yeah,
and you don't just look at what it lists automatically, but you actually have to click onto it and see the full list.
Oh yeah, so one thing about the list thing, you had shot me a message about if the hashtag Pokemon thing would come up on my home screen, and it didn't.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And I actually asked about 2 or 3 other people. I asked some people in the GRA if they had seen it, and no. And actually, I'm not seeing it on my main account. I'm only seeing it on the GRA account. So, you know, you've got like 3 or 4, or however many people who mostly read and write Pokemon fanfics who aren't even seeing that Pokemon tag in their home feed.
Okay.
So that is something that I found interesting, but the fact that 8 out of 12 people who responded are actually looking at the home feed for recommendations says that it might be important, because you never really know who's getting that tag and who's not, and who's going to be clicking to see the full list and who's not. So it might matter.
I keep nodding throughout this entire thing, and then I realize no one can see me nodding. I am understanding.
So you're the gift right now?
So I just told you, you know, you've got a list that you can only access in those 2 very specific ways. But that list, as far as I can tell, is what's using the old style algorithm that used to drive the list under the genres. Because there is actually a different algorithm that's doing the searches. If you search for Pokemon right now, you'll get a specific list, and that'll depend on, you know, how you have your filters set up, because you've got a few different options for that. But it will definitely be different than what the tag rankings for Pokemon are. And if you search for hashtag Pokemon using the search bar, it's also not the same. It's not the same as either one. So, for example, the Pokemon tag rankings, as of right now today. Number 1 is Champion, a Pokemon high school story. Number 2 is called Heartbreaker. 3 is Destiny Rebirth. On the home tab, we get some books that are a little more familiar. Blue Lightning is number 1 on the home tab. To Steal the Heart of a Thief is number 2 on the home tab. You've got an X-Reader. You've got Life as a Pokemon. You've got Pokemon, a Training Start.
Okay.
If you search for hashtag Pokemon, and I use the filters that are the default because I think that's probably what most people are doing. And by default, it includes completed and incompleted books, and it includes mature ones, but maybe only if you're over 18. I don't know for sure. That's just what the default is for me. If the Pokemon characters had Facebook is number 1 over there. And then Opposite Attract and A New Adventure and To Steal the Heart of a Thief is number 4 there. If you search for just Pokemon, you get Pokemon High, Pokemon in the Real World, Pokemon Builder, Life as a Pokemon, and Human Pokemon X-Reader.
It's got all Pokemon in the title.
Exactly. That is important. I emphasize that for a reason. Because when you use the search, it's not actually supposed to be giving you reading recommendations. It's supposed to be helping you find what you're looking for. So books that have Pokemon as the first word in the title or in their title are going to be up in the searches. Books that have Pokemon in the title and the description are going to be up in the searches. Books that have Pokemon in the title and the description, and if you've got Pokemon in your username, that's even higher. Because it doesn't know, in the search, it doesn't know if you're searching for a title, it doesn't know if you're searching for a description or a tag, or if you're searching for a user. It's just trying to look at the words that you sent it and try to find relevant results.
Oh, okay.
So what's actually trying to be a reading recommendation are these tags.
Okay. That makes okay. That's good. Now we gotta just like relearn how to use Wattpad, but if we learn how to use it
I'm not
right,
changing my titles. I like them.
So anyway, actually how I emphasize things for the GRA to get better results is I actually added Pokemon to the username, of the display name, because I didn't change our actual username, but I added it to the display name of the GRA. So instead of GRA, we're now Pokemon GRA as the display name.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And instead of our book being called Book Reviews, it's now called Pokemon Book Reviews. And because that's our most popular book, and now it has Pokemon in the title, and our account name has that in the display, I also added Pokemon to a few spots in our profile description. Now we're getting consistently good search results.
Oh, I'm gonna try doing that. I'm just gonna like put Pokemon everywhere. Rose, Pokemon.
But see, I don't recommend abusing it because it'll start to lose its utility after a while.
This is
I just
true.
realized I was muted for 10 minutes.
Oh,
I was
man.
wondering why you were so
Suspiciously quiet.
I was talking and I was like, why is everyone just ignoring me?
Oh, that's sad.
But see, I don't know if Wattpad actually has things behind the scenes to check to see if you're abusing the system. Because I only added those things because they actually are relevant to our book. Our book is a Pokemon book review book. You know, our account is focused entirely on Pokemon.
That is.
And it might actually search the text of your source to see, are you actually talking about Pokemon, or are you just trying to play with us? You know what I mean?
Okay. Smart on Wattpad.
So really what I recommend is labeling your stories and your account in whatever way makes sense with what your account is about, what your book is about, things like that. Use tags for what your book is about. Because Wattpad is definitely trying to go to a system of people finding things that are actually whatever that thing that people are looking for is. So that's for the search, which, you know, a lot of people use. I don't actually recommend using the search for book recommendations because it's going to be the same thing all the time, and you're going to get not great results if you're looking for something new to read or something interesting to read or even something good to read. So I've actually spent a lot of time researching the new tag rankings, and those work in a different way. Like I said, those kind of are trying to be like recommendations.
All right.
And actually, look at the text of Wattpad itself. It announced the changes. It said that stories are ranked based on a combination of factors like recent traction on a story, relevance to that tag, and when it was last updated if it's a serialized story. And guess what I found when I did my research?
What did you find there?
That it was based on exactly those things.
Oh my god!
Like, Wattpad's actually being reliable for once.
So yes, when it says recent traction, I actually found that even more than total reads, more than total votes, more than total comments, and even if you look at reads per part, or votes per part, or comments per part, the thing that the algorithm seems to like the best is recent reads, votes, and comments.
Huh.
So if someone read your story, like 5 chapters of it yesterday, and no one else read the story that's got like 1,000 more reads from you, you might rank higher than them.
Ah, that makes sense.
That gives me a little hope.
So yeah,
I assume that's trying to promote newer books and stuff. Just because I guess Wattpad doesn't want people to read the same thing over and over again.
They don't want people to read the same thing over and over. They also don't want people to start reading a book that somebody just dropped 2 years ago and is never going to update again.
Yeah, that sucks. Actually sucks.
Remember when, like, on the search bar, Blue Lightning was always #1 for, like, 2 years? And I was like, people aren't really gonna know what else to read if that's always #1.
And that's the point about the search bar. It's always going to show, like, the same thing. But I've noticed in following the tags over the past several weeks that Wattpad does mix them up every once in a while. And I don't really know how they do it, but it seems like there's always a mix of books that are performing really well as sort of the underdog books, which I think Rose had brought up before, which are books that maybe just got published, or books by brand new authors, books that are like sort of undiscovered or whatever it is. So you'll have something like, I was following a tag that I had a couple of my books in, and SG Mijumu had a couple of his books in. And, we're both pretty well-established authors. We've got a fairly good audience. And, one of my books was Getting Out of Fuchsia, which is a completed one that has performed pretty well.
Yeah, it is good.
So,
I recommend.
If it was based, and we also picked like a tag that not many people were in. So if it was based just on stats, like Getting Out of Fuchsia should have been like top 5 every single day, but it definitely was not.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, it actually seems more like books are competing for a spot in that list against books that are in a similar status to theirs. So, like, my ongoing book, Pokemon Rewritten, might be there, or it might be like Astral Genealogy by SG Mijumu, and it might be like only one of ours and not the other because there weren't enough spots that day for having both of them or something like that. At least as far as I can guess. But then at the same time, you would have like week or day after day, you would have all these little books that had like 1 chapter published and like 5 reads and 1 vote, and they would be right up there in the top 10.
Would recently completed books also have somewhat of an edge?
I think that completed books don't have the same sort of penalties as like books that haven't been updated in a while. So like if you're recently updating a ongoing story, it gets a bump. If the story is completed, I think that it just gets a completely different kind of treatment. I haven't been able to figure out exactly how that works yet, but there were completed books that were showing up there when they were getting recent activity on them.
I think maybe, like, especially if you just recently complete a book, that's going to have a lot of people like, oh, finally it's completed, so I can binge read it in the night type of thing.
Yeah, that's me. I'm literally waiting in the shadows to pounce on a completed book.
And I will say the thing that shot up Getting Out of Fuchsia to #1 for like 3 days in a row was like I had 2 different people go through and read and vote on every single chapter of it.
Oh. So basically,
It was a fun thing to wake up to in the morning.
So are you saying I should spam the most popular authors on our platform saying, can you read my book?
No, I'm not saying that because they will not like you and then they won't be your friends and then you'll lose out on that entire social part I talked about where they're following your reading lists and things like that.
Then what about the people who go onto their message board? They'll see me, right?
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. This is me like slightly ranting. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've done like a lot of research into this, but I know I've taken quite a lot of time already. So that's the main takeaways that I had from it, which are that that's basically how the search and basically how the tag rankings work. but they're also not the only thing. It really does matter, like recommendations by real people, or even just like you reading and voting on stuff.
All right. So, I know that Maple. Do you have like a lot more to talk about, or are we getting?
No, I'm sort of wrapping it up so that someone else can work their part.
Cool. Gotta get rid of that stuff. All right. So our next topic. Do you have any more like closing comments? Anyone have any closing questions and remarks that they want to bring up?
Or any other questions? I actually just flipped over to the stream right now to see if anybody's got questions and comments. Oh, I see that somebody spammed me and you, Rose. Oh, God. Apparently.
I did not. Wait, is it Mahi? Yes, it's Mahi. That's my daughter. I love her. Okay. So I guess it doesn't look like there are any questions right now from you.
Oh, I see people mentioning the X-Reader fix, and I forgot to mention that. Oh, I think that those tend to be up in the popularity because I think comments count more than reads and votes, and I think those kinds of books tend to get more comments, but I haven't done a lot of research.
Yesterday we had a fun time where we looked up a Lost Silver X-Reader, and we clicked on the first one to read it.
I can tell you that's definitely the case for role plays. You'll also see role plays ranking really well, and that's, I'm pretty sure, because of comments.
Yeah, because that makes sense. Obviously, you role play with comics.
Yeah. I remember running an RP for a while. That was chaos.
Never did it.
Don't. It's terrifying.
It also might be that books like that get updated more often because maybe the authors aren't putting as much effort into each individual chapter and they're just trying to make like a fun thing that will get lots of reads and clicks and whatever.
Yeah, usually it'll be like a few minutes writing a prompt for people and then playing off of it or just copy and pasting the comments.
Yeah, the algorithm will love it if you update really regularly and get lots of comments from it.
Alright, so any more filing questions? Because I'm staring at my phone, like, zoning in between 3 different places at once.
Nope, go right ahead.
Okay. This one's going to be a little bit more sensitive. We're just talking about it. Not to get out of the way, it's an important thing, but we were going to talk about representation and discrimination within Pokemon fics. And I'm going to be leading this one a bit, but everyone here can participate and go off on tangents because I know this one is definitely a big one that we've had a few people rant about. I know that Imber is working on a fan fiction currently that actually circulates around racial discrimination that they are working on the works. So that's going to be
And I know you have some LGBT coming out.
Yeah, I am. I honestly I'll get to that. But I was going to say kind of one thing is when I first got into this fandom that kind of I didn't really think about until I read Sheare's piece about discrimination was when I first came on. I had this friend who was African American, and well, technically they're not African American. We'll say black because they
you could just say you could say person of color.
Person of color. Okay, I had a friend that was a person of color. And I really got along with them, but I noticed all of their protagonists were mainly white. And I kind of, after a while, realized that's just kind of what they've been exposed to their entire life and what will get the majority towards them sometimes. Because there's kind of a preference there.
Yeah, and it probably didn't help back then either that a lot of the protagonists of Pokemon games do end up being white.
Oh yeah, it wasn't until X and Y when we could choose a different skin color. Which I thought was just amazing.
And even then, the marketing usually showed them as pale-skinned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Which I thought that you should at least make Alola a person of color for a protagonist.
I mean,
I do like that you can pick.
Yeah, I do like that you can pick. I get that, but like
in the official art, if you're saying that it should have been, I would agree.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna have basically like your game star a region with where the majority of people is like a person of color, then you should at least have your protagonists be people of color.
Yeah. I know one thing with the region is that you moved there, so it could be another race, but
then why is your mother character
Yeah, I know.
Dark skinned.
Oh my god.
That's a
no.
good-
Guys,
And then why is your isn't like aren't you like related to like the person of color lab or
Yeah, that's true.
professor too?
But
So
guys,
like
are you?
why do you not have like a lick of that DNA? Like
I didn't think you were related to the
Because
professor.
I think it was just like a thing he just called people cousin.
He
or,
just
like,
called you
Right,
cousin.
right. That's a slang for Hawaii.
okay.
Also, in the Kalos games X and Y, I'd like play with it now around, and I chose to play a person of color, and my mom was still white AF, and I'm like, I don't see how these genetics worked, but okay.
I mean, promoting adopting?
True, okay.
You never see the dad in these games. Well, forget about Gen 3.
All the moms are single moms who adopted, except for Gen 3. Gen 3 had a typical family. Okay, but one thing that kind of comes with race is that it's kind not race, but writing a person of color. I've seen online people will say things like, "I just feel like I can't do their culture justice," or I don't know how to do this, and kind of what I would say is research. You don't like for Alola. You obviously aren't going to research what's it like living as a black woman. No, but if you're
Hawaiian culture.
yes, Hawaiian culture. Look up Hawaiian legends. There's one of Maui with his giant fish hook pulling the sun across
That's
the sky,
Polynesian.
which you could like turn into a story about a legendary trainer who had the legendary's favor, and he rode Salagio across the sky. It's kind of adapting and researching different cultures.
And actually, if you look at the Alolan Pokedex, there's actually a lot of references to Hawaiian traditions that are built into there, and people don't even realize it if they don't look into it.
Oh yeah, I had just gotten back from Hawaii when this game had came out, so I was starting to see like all the little parallels. So I'm like, they did their research. But that's one thing. And I don't think anyone purposely writes their characters like white because they have some like racism. I think it's just kind of unconscious of.
Yeah, it's mostly unconscious.
Yeah, because it's just all like many of us have been exposed to.
Yeah, but that's
TV.
sort of kind of an issue in its own, but it's not anyone's fault.
We'll blame society. Down with society, guys. Anarchy! Anarchy! Then there's also kind of moving more towards LGBT a bit more. This one's kind of a hard one because we recently did, not recently, in a few years in America, we recently have had gay marriage legalized, so it's kind of a sensitive topic to bring. It's not sensitive, it's irrational, but we still struggle.
It's a recent development.
It's a recent development, and there's like transgender bathroom rights and such, and honestly, I really never met someone who was transgender until I got into college, and then I went to North Carolina, and I had one of my cosplay friends was transgender, and they'd gotten out of the bathroom. I'm like, so weird question. I know like you could use the girls' bathroom, but like because you're a girl, but like they're a trans girl, and they said they use the guys' bathroom just so they can feel more safe. And I'm like, oh, that's really sad.
Oh yeah, I got it.
It's still a complicated matter there, but I mean, we're in a fandom where we have our gay ships. Everyone loves silver and gold, but
yeah, which is like what kind of annoys me too, because like a lot of the LGBT representation is in the form of like one-shot lemons with like advertising it as Yuri or Yaoi
and advertising it.
Yeah, and all of that, and not just having like treating it like you would like a heterosexual romance book that you're entering into the Waddies.
That's exactly what you do it as. It's a regular romance. You just replace the he's with she's, and there you go. Two girls are together.
But yeah.
No, I can understand. It's complicated. It's definitely something that just is difficult to deal with. Then there's I completely forgot about talking racial conflict. Oops, we'll talk about that later. another part I wanted to bring up and talk about was, this one was has less drama about it because there have been a few stories I've noticed about it, but characters who have disabilities or Pokemon who have some sort of disability, like in one story we had talked about yesterday, there was a Ninetales who was blind and appeared as a very formidable foe. We talked about how Shiny Mew Girl has a character who is mute, Finding My Voice. So there are a few characters, but not as many because health. So, and it makes sense.
Or just people don't think about it.
Yeah, people don't think about it. I mean, it's not like we're discriminating. It's not like they don't exist, but it's like if we're thinking of an adventurer, we think of a person who's mostly completely healthy. We'll say, we know Wally has asthma from the canon games, but have we ever thought about writing a character who had asthma? Nah, I want them to go climb this mountain. It's kind of having
and it's a little weird too, because like from the ways that I've seen disabled characters write, like Shiny Mew Girls with the mute, they were portrayed more as like sickly characters, and it's just weird to see, and they don't really research on the ways that mute people live.
Yeah, it's not just a matter of
I saw this one thing
you
from the
definitely
sequel.
have to do it
They said
correctly.
that the muteness came from a genetic mutation.
Yeah, do your research about how diseases come about. Definitely.
And how the people with them actually live.
Yeah, I am recently working on a blind character, and so I've been doing a lot of research in different like head injuries, whether it can be something you're born with, different types of accidents that cause you to be blind, and I watch many videos on what's it like to be blind.
Yeah, and then you have to do Braille and stuff.
Yeah, Braille. Some people have
Canes.
Canes, thank you. Or walking dogs. And I actually did a lot of research about the walking dogs, which they don't actually usually, like, they're good at alerting and guiding, but blind people actually have a faster reaction time to things. Like commonly. That was, like, a common thing I had noticed. So, that I had, like, noticed in the research. Not that I noticed. Researchers had noticed. As you can see, I'm very prepared and great with words. But that's just kind of a thing to bring up, that it's definitely like it's hard to also execute it as well. But there definitely have been people in history who have executed characters with disabilities well. We all know Full Metal Alchemist. Guy lost a leg and an arm and has 2 metal prosthetics, and we see him as this strong alchemist, but he also still struggles with cold, frostbite. He has to get his prosthetics changed while he's growing or when he breaks them in these fights. But he's still not like a little weakling who needs protection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these things come from
I love it so much.
I feel like a lot of these things just come from like a lack of imagination or just considering these things as possibilities for characters.
Or
there's a lot of beginning writers on Wattpad who are just like taking the characters like exactly from the main series games and just saying like, oh yes, this character is exactly like Red or whatever it is. You know?
Yeah, because I guess it's a little easier than spending hours researching how mute people live.
Yes.
Or the culture of Hawaiian people.
But the point is, if you do it, you can make a really great story that'll stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to make your story stand out, spend all of your free time researching, like me, because I'm a loser who has no life.
But the upside is, it won't just help with your writing, it'll also help with your life and for understanding other people in the real world.
It definitely helps work with, like, developing a sense of empathy, like you said, Maple, so. I was also going to talk about racial conflict, but we're kind of getting close onto the amount of time. So let's see if there are any questions that I don't have any questions, but you guys have
also,
some questions.
good point by somebody in the chat who says that he lives in Hawaii. You could also try talking to somebody on Wattpad who is in that situation.
Exactly, someone who's, like, lives in that culture and is constantly immersed into it.
Yeah, go ahead and talk to him.
And, like, that's actually one of the best ways to research is talking to people, like, who live with a disability or live in that type of lifestyle, like, that, like, I remember I had to do a study of Detroit when I was in high school for my critical issues class, and research how bad transportation stuff was, and I had to go into the city and interview with people who are there, like stop people at bus stops and be like, so, how long have you been waiting here today? What's the average wait on a bus? It was grueling, but it definitely helped build a good foundation for what I ended up presenting, so.
Yeah, and I also, like, I was talking to my friend Sheldon, SG Mijimuru, I don't know how long ago it was, but he was concerned about his depiction of religion in his book, and, I actually offered to, like, look it over for him and say, like, would this offend religious people or not? And, me being able to say, like, yeah, I think that this is fine, just make sure this, and whatever, then that made him feel a lot better. And I feel like that's a big hurdle for people, that they're like, oh, what if I offend someone? Just go ask somebody who is in that situation and find out, and then you'll feel a lot better about it.
Oh, yeah. It's like, when you, like, ask them back and forth, it's definitely very helpful, so. Alright, so I don't see much going on in the chat, mostly because there's a few minute lag.
Yeah. I think we can move on.
Yeah, so I give the mic over to Kat.
Okay. Wait, is this the trope talk?
Yes, this is the tropes talk.
Ooh, the fun stuff.
Okay, we're like, this is mostly just us naming examples of tropes and then going it. But what I find hard to point out and like bring attention to certain tropes is kind of discerning between what is a Pokemon exclusive trope and what is just a trope that goes on in fiction in general, which I tend to get more passionate about the ones that involve fiction in general, like ones that involve the romance genre and adventure genre, and then there's things that only happen in Pokemon fics that you would consider tropes and things like that. And like, for example, there's the trope going around that a Pokemon, or like you're in a Pokemon battle and your Pokemon ends up winning the battle because of some miracle move having to do with their terrain and not an actual Pokemon move. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I understand. That's been a fun thing.
You would only consider that like a Pokemon exclusive sort of thing, but then what can I name for like for a romance trope in general you can do, I ran about chase romances a lot. I mean, and there's always that, the bad boy and the good girl trope.
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely we can talk about all of the tropes personally, because if you write fan fiction, you're bound to fall into some of the general fiction tropes as well. And
well, yeah, the main issue is like, obviously everyone's gonna use a trope, like everyone.
Oh yeah, the tropes will always exist.
You can't avoid it, but how do you make it so your book doesn't seem, how do I put this, tropey? Cliche? Like, how do you make it so readers don't just get, like, angry about it?
I mean, you could
how, like, this is just trope-riddled.
There's always taking the trope and kind of playing with it, like, you could take a love triangle, like, that's a common trope, and you always know which one they're kind of leaning for throughout it, but kind of in time, like, not just like a full twist where it's like, oh wow, there was no context clues that I would go over to Benny over there, but you could kind of start showing, like, through the story, it shifts from the first person to the second person in preferences.
Yeah, I think it was like the tropes exist for a reason, so...
Yeah, because they're popularized.
But what are some of our favorite tropes, like cliche tropes that we love and just gush about when we see?
I'm a huge fan of the
Pokemon companions.
Oh.
You guys talked a couple
Wait,
times.
repeat that? I didn't hear you. I didn't even hear what Imber said.
Imber, could you repeat yourself?
I said sassy Pokemon companions.
Oh, yeah, of course you would mention that.
What were you saying, Kat?
I was going to say that I personally like the childhood friend romance trope.
Oh, yeah, those are cute.
Oh, yeah, it's like one of my favorite tropes.
That's, like, so cute. Okay.
Okay. I've written this trope before, but it's because I like it so much in all TV shows. Also, I brought your pet love Imber. But reeling, give me a minute to think. It's like having like a little girl who isn't blood related to the main character, or like little like girl or boy, or and it doesn't matter what gender they are. A little child like attaching onto the main character and seeing them as a brotherly or sisterly figure or sibling figure, because that always makes it's so cute to me, and they just are like a voice for me half the time.
Same thing for like mentor relationships, where like a character may be like a paternal figure or something like that.
I can see
But
that. It's a nice like feeling.
Yeah, it is.
And I've like
As far as like other like romancy tropes, like I like anything that's not degrading towards like any group. So like as long as it's that, I'm fine.
Makes sense. Okay, what's our least favorite tropes, guys? The common ones that are everywhere, like that can be in fan fiction or just regular books that drive us insane.
Oh, you could say Chinese is technically one.
Everybody and their mother has an Eevee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Shiny Eevee.
We should just make like a Pokemon ban list.
Your first Pokemon shouldn't be an Eevee. There are a lot of people like, look at my first Pokemon, it's a shiny Eevee. Ah.
That happened like twice during the adventure category last year.
Oh god.
Like, I'm so edgy. I have a shiny silvery Eevee.
And then there's Absol. I'm guilty of this. I have Absol as one of the first Pokemon introduced in my new fic, but Absol is everywhere that I've seen. He's cliche.
Because it's so cool.
It's a good Pokemon.
He's like, I'm so edgy. I'm a misunderstood dark type. Everyone thinks I bring disaster, but the truth is, I warn people of disaster. I want to save lives, even though dark type is literally translated to evil type in the Japanese form. Fun fact.
Yeah, I think the main problem with things like that is that people are just taking what's already well established in the canon and not doing anything creative with it.
Oh,
You know, if your entire story about Absol is exactly what you can read in their Pokedex entry, you're probably doing something wrong. And that's not just the case for Absol, but it's popular with Absol because Absol's Pokedex entry is interesting.
Yeah. And also, okay, maybe this is a Pokemon cliche that I don't like, that following the characters throughout the plot of the game, like, I wrote that a few times, but it's interesting to see their twists onto it. But if you're following the game, like, scene by scene with maybe one or two dialogue changes, I want to go and climb up a wall.
Yeah.
Because I've already read this before. I played the game
Yeah, I
5
know. I
times.
hate
Climb a
like,
wall.
it's literally
Table.
regurgitating the game story, and I'm like, please.
There's like not much point.
No.
Yeah, so I think the real problem is just lack
It's
of
like most
creativity.
painful with X and Y fix.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, there's a lot of anime fics like Ash and Serena. I've seen that a lot. You okay there, Kat?
No, I'm sorry. I just get a little queasy when someone mentions Ash.
What, a more shipping?
No, I'm just Ash in general. I'm just anti-Ash.
Well, that's your opinion, Kat. Some of us are
Yay.
actually including him in our stories.
I'm sorry, Maple.
He's cool,
You know,
but
just
like,
pointing it out.
I like Ash as a character, but I can't watch the anime anymore just because it's meant for each new generation of kids coming to watch it. So when
Yeah,
I
that's
continuously
exactly what it
watch
is.
him fold and never age,
Yeah.
I get tired. So I'm like, I'll leave this for the next kids to watch, so they can have
Wait,
the story I have.
in Gen 7 and Sun and Moon, he's technically 11.
Oh, because he aged up.
But yeah,
Yeah, so
I used to love
finally,
the
20
anime when I
years
was a
later,
kid, and I stopped
The
watching when I got
Pichu
older.
Pikachu short is
That's the nature of
canonical.
it.
Sorry. Yeah, I need lemonade. Alright, so we didn't have much about trope talk. We more of ranted and just discussed tropes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all it was gonna be anyway.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. We were running a little behind anyway.
Yeah. But I think the next one, I already know is going to get a few groans from some of you guys. grammar and vocabulary, and the trouble that's going on fanfic.
Accent your E's, kids, or else Cat will hunt you
And
down.
capitalize your P's.
And please,
man.
please,
Oh, that
for the love
sounds
of God,
so awful.
separate your
Oh,
dialogue
no.
between characters. That drives me.
Oof.
People who don't separate.
Oh yeah, it happens. I'm surprised how often it is, because you would think, at least like some, like in English class, the books you read, their dialogue is separated. So I don't know where this came from.
I know, it's like, this is the new way to write, guys. No, it's not. It's confusing. Ooh, I just, someone in our chat posted a trope thing. It's where the main character is a guy, and he gets into this world he doesn't understand. Some experienced women teacher gives him, no, I can't.
Advice or something.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's basically like the one who has less experience ends up like kind of
Being the one to save the more
Yeah.
experienced
Yeah.
one.
yeah, which shouldn't happen, but
And that happens with like race and things sometimes too, and it's a real shame.
and it sometimes happens for the sake of plot twisting too, and it's like
Yeah, but it's really just perpetuating old stereotypes below the surface, which, you know, a lot of people might not realize, but it actually is. It's just happening on a deeper level. You know what I mean? It's sending the message that, like, you know, the guy or the person of the other race or whatever is in some way superior to the girl or the person of the other race,
yeah.
because they're able to, like, easily surpass even
Oh
the
yeah,
more
they're more
experienced person
naturally
of
equipped,
the other group.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, it sounds like a fun story, maybe, and, like, you know, it's something that you might have heard a lot of places, but it shouldn't necessarily be continuing beyond, you know, the time period when it originated in, because our mindsets should be evolving.
Guys, like, a good example in real life would be Little Mermaid. It was a great hit when it came out, and it was amazing, and then you watch it when you're older, and you're like, oh my god, it literally is just saying that your looks will get you the guy, and have a pretty singing voice.
Ugh.
And it's like giving up your entire life for a man. Oh my.
That's why I don't really watch a lot of princess movies.
The new ones definitely do take a change and are
Yeah,
a lot more-
obviously
Yeah.
the new ones, yeah.
But Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and My Little Mermaid. I was gonna say
My
Little Mermaid.
And yeah, the thing about a lot of those also is that they're based on really old stories that also were telling similar lessons, and actually some of them went like even deeper into like really scarier stuff that even Disney
Yeah.
included in theirs.
Oh yeah, Sleeping Beauty was.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't it the Cinderella? Why was I pronouncing
Cinderella?
the Cinderella story where to fit in the shoe, she actually cut off some of her flesh of her foot.
Right,
Yep,
and
it did.
that's the disturbing part, but I'm talking more about, like, I'm thinking Rapunzel specifically. I really doubt you guys know it, and it might not be appropriate even for me to talk about on the stream, but if you
I know the
haven't
original,
found it,
and oh boy.
and you're old enough, try going and looking up the original Rapunzel story and
Sleeping
seeing.
Beauty, original Sleeping Beauty definitely is a little dark, seeing that. I'm gonna say it because I don't think saying the word is not PG-13, but I know Sleeping Beauty, while she's under the curse, is raped by the prince, and then she gives birth while still asleep, and one of her kids crawls up and sucks out the poison from her finger, and then she wakes up. That's the original story.
So yeah, you can see that Disney improved on that even in their time, and you know, that's the way things should be, that with each new generation that's sort of improving on these really old ideas, we should be changing the stories to sort of match or try to, you know, push forward our understandings of the world, basically. So you know, there might be something in the old trope that is like something interesting, but there might also be something that like is more sinister and deserves an upgrade.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I know we are very off of grammar and vocab.
Yeah, you put us back on the
Alright.
truth, that's why. Do you want to go back to grammar and vocab?
We probably should.
Well, what I was going to say about grammar and vocab is that one thing about lots of Wattpad writers I've noticed is that they're inexperienced, and or sometimes it's one or the other, sometimes it's both. English isn't their native language.
Yep.
So sometimes, not really a matter of, like, it's really more about them, not having learned things or, like, just, being on their way towards something rather than, like, they should be measured by the same standards as, like, I don't know, let's say me as, like, an adult who had a full college education and grew up in a completely English-speaking country, for example. I've had a lot of advantages that a lot of other people on Wattpad haven't or haven't yet.
Yeah, that completely makes sense.
So, the important thing is finding resources, I think, because, if someone is on Wattpad, then we can know that they at least have an internet connection.
Yeah.
And there are free online resources that people can use to learn good grammar and vocabulary and to actually check their spelling, their grammar, their vocabulary before they post it onto Wattpad.
Yep. One thing that's always advertised to me whenever I go on YouTube is Grammarly.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's actually one thing you can use.
Yeah. And then for vocabulary, this one I say use sparingly, but the thesaurus.
Don't say that word, I'll just bring it out.
Oh my god,
bring
I
them
used to
termite
overuse the
Woodward.
thesaurus so much.
Oh yeah, the thesaurus abuse is a phase all of us went through at some point, right?
I don't believe I did, but I don't know. You could go back in time and find something that I'm just not remembering.
Well, you're an adult. Maybe you're blocking it out.
I mean, it's possible. I wasn't publishing stuff online when I was the same age you guys were.
That's fair. I think were you about like my age when you came onto Wattpad? Like my current
I was
age?
in college.
So yeah, you're okay. Yeah, we're about the same age. About like when you.
Well, I think I was older than 19, though. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. College is
yeah.
weird.
Anyway, yeah. What was I saying? Something.
Grammar, vocab, thesaurus.
Oh, yes. So I think the important thing about using a thesaurus, if you want to use it, like if you feel like your vocabulary isn't good and you want to find another word, is to make sure that before you use the word you found in a thesaurus, you completely understand what it means. Because most of the problem is people looking up a technical synonym, but it doesn't work the way that they think it works.
A good example is instead of saying butt dial, they don't want to say butt dial over time, so they find another word for butt is booty, and another word for dial is call. So they booty call someone. Different thing altogether. And always remember to do extra research about the words you use, kids, so that doesn't happen.
That is a great example. So yeah, I would recommend, don't just use a thesaurus, use a thesaurus, and then use a dictionary to look up the word that you found in the thesaurus, and then do a Google search of that word and find where it's actually being used in actual sentences.
Yes. So, that's thesaurus. If you do have trouble with your grammar, like your English second language you've recently published, there also are a lot of different Wattpad accounts that offer editing services where they can go through and help fix up English. If you're just kind of starting to get the hang of this, you can even work with some people who can say, hey, you can work on this. One thing I noticed as a problem was you keep confusing your two yours. So, and like working with people and having like an editor, like, or an account as an editor for a little while is definitely something helpful. Like, doesn't the GRA have an editing service? Or?
Indeed we do, and I am one of the editors there.
Little
shameless self-promotion.
Well, I didn't bring it up.
I brought it up. I'm just like nudge nudge promotion. I mean, when I said one of my books would probably need editing, you're like, I know an account that can help, and I'm like, I bet you do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm offering you my help, Rose.
Thank you. I'll one day take advantage of it, but for now I'm being stubborn and saying everything's perfect until I'm rejected.
But yeah, we edit one-shots. We edit the first chapter of your work, and the idea of that is that we'll point out things that you're doing wrong that maybe you don't even realize you're doing wrong, and point you in the right direction so you can move forward on your own. But yeah, if you're looking for other like full-time editors, there are actually some like in the forums that I mentioned before that you can actually go and find, and they might like do your entire book for you.
Usually, like, not at a cost, but like you'd have to read one of their books and give them like your opinion from a reader standpoint, or follow them. It depends. Yeah.
It depends on the person. Yeah.
But no one will charge you like real money, because that's
against terms of service for Wattpad.
Exactly. Like, I think I told. Fun story, when I was 13 and first getting into Wattpad, I told my mom that I had someone reviewing my book and giving me their opinion, and then and they're like, oh, are you paying them? I'm like, kinda, and they're like, oh my god, are you giving them real money? Where are you getting this money from? And I'm like, no wait, they're not like that low. Alright, but does anyone have any more things to talk about, like how to help grammar resources that they use that some of us might not know?
It's not could of, it's could if, or could have.
Right, it's an abbreviation for have, so it's apostrophe V.
Please stop doing this, people.
That's fair.
I mean, I pretty much rely on autocorrect. That's it.
Same.
Unless that's if there's a situation where like I'm not sure about what punctuation I'm using or like whatever, that I'll actually consult Maple or search online.
Okay.
I was going to say that's also something that I'm sure that Grammarly catches for you, because that's a very easy one for computers to spot automatically.
One thing I do is I often go to Google for who's and whom.
Yeah, that's something I actually didn't know until I got to AP English language.
I think you learned it like in primary school. It's like,
Oh, you learned it before us.
no, it was just like we like the teacher just gave us like one sentence to help, and then we just never touched it for the rest of the.
You got one sentence. I hope you remember now, because we're never talking about it ever again.
Yeah.
But, so, is there any questions in the chat? I'm going to say that, and then we got to wait like a couple minutes for the lag to connect.
Yeah, I haven't been seeing any questions throughout this.
And I guess people really don't want to ask questions. They just want to stalk us. And I'm so honored. I'd flip my hair if I had any.
But yeah, I definitely recommend using Grammarly or using the built-in dictionaries in Microsoft Word or in Google Docs even. You know, you can just get a Google Docs account for free if you're online, and it'll fix a lot of things for you.
Oh, that also reminds me. Sentence structure. That's a thing. I struggle with that. But comma splices.
What aspect do you struggle with it?
I mean, comma splices. I overuse those things. Like, I just love, like, let's put a comma here. Even though I'm like, I should create two separate sentences. That's
Me with hyphens.
Oh, yes.
Oh, hyphens or dashes, you mean?
Yeah, and like semicolons.
Yeah.
I think I overuse dashes. I overuse dashes and I overuse fragments.
Yeah.
I like fragments.
Fragments, I think, in literary fiction is a kind of like a more acceptable thing. Like in our type of fiction genre, it's okay, but if you're writing for a newspaper or something official, then fragments aren't as acceptable. But in fiction, I believe it's a little bit more.
Yeah,
okay.
I know it's acceptable. I just love them.
I understand.
I see someone in the chat asking for tips for Pokemon Fix, but I don't know what specifically they're asking about.
I'm pretty sure this whole stream is about tips for Pokemon Fix.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that too. I'm wondering if by talking about it, they might give me some additional things about what exactly they're looking for.
Yes, let's wait a couple of minutes for the thing to catch up.
Although I suppose I should say Z, which is a new thing we're trying to do in the GRA. Gender-neutral pronouns.
Wait, is it Z or Zai? How you pronounce it? I thought it was Zai.
I think it's Z.
I believe it's
Is it
Z.
Z?
It's like Z and Z. It's like Zimself and Zims. Yeah.
Zerself.
Okay.
And meanwhile, I'm over here still just using they and them because that I just can't really get into using that.
Which you can, but you know, I'm thinking
that's going to be my biggest difficulty involving it. I'm so used to saying they.
I'm going to most commonly use they probably. Like, I have a gender-neutral character in my book, and I've been debating back and forth whether I should use ze or they, because I'm like,
I don't know.
Someone's asking about battle scenes, which is actually our next topic. Just so you know, Ellison, that's our next topic after grammar.
Okay, battle scenes. Let's go. Everyone but Kat.
I'm sitting out.
Go
Bye.
in your corner.
Bye.
Bye. Well, you can come back, Kat. You can bring up questions about what you would want to know about battle scenes. Battle scenes words.
Well, I'll say that I have my method that I've developed for it, but I don't know if anyone else would want to use my method.
Tell us your method. Tell us your method.
Well, I'm a very logical and organized sort of thinker. I probably should have mentioned earlier when I was talking about the algorithms, but I'm a computer programmer, so I tend to think
in numbers.
No, not in numbers, but in that sort of logic, which, you know, it's Boolean logic kind of, but anyway. And I actually identify really closely with the video games and the rules that operate the battle mechanics there. So actually what I have done is I have created a spreadsheet that has all of the statistics for all of my characters' Pokemon in it, and I've created a formula that replicates the in-game battle formula for damage.
Oh, that's super smart.
Oh. So I actually...
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, which is why I said I don't know if anybody else will want to do it. But it makes me honest. So, like, if my Chikorita uses Razor Leaf, it's actually going to do a realistic amount of damage to that Geodude, and I can't go and say just like, oh yeah, she knocks it out in one hit, because I really want Chica to win. I love her so much.
I do not do that. I do kind of a basic form of that. Like, when I'm setting up my Pokemon, I will follow the formula, like, they only have 4 moves. That's one thing I see. Like, there'll be a character who's they'll like order their Pokemon and they'll use like 7 moves in a battle, and I'm like, what?
Like, I actually like having more moves to use because it makes the battle scenes more interesting, in my opinion, in the thick.
That makes sense.
I've been trying to do this new thing where a Pokemon can use every move in their current evolution's learn set, discounting TMs and HMs.
Oh. I usually just stick with 4 and then just kind of figure it out. I'm like...
4 is boring.
Well then!
Well, it depends how you do it. Like, you know, if you're going to be describing the battle scenes in lots of detail, then 4 could definitely get boring. But if you're actually going to be using a route where you just, like, summarize the battles and, like, you know, let's say Chikorita is using Razor Leaf, like, 5 times in a row, you don't have to write 5 times in a row Chica used Razor Leaf.
Guys, someone in the comments section brought up damage calculators that you can find online.
Which, you know, it's probably a thing, but I didn't find it when I made my spreadsheet, and now I have it, so ha ha ha.
You did so much work.
Hey, I'm a programmer. It's interesting to me to make it myself.
This is true. I did the same way with trying to figure out...
I'm surprised you guys don't use damage calculators. I mean, there's a lot of them because competitive Pokemon battling.
Makes sense.
I didn't know about them.
I just kind of went with it like, okay, I know my character is going to lose this battle, so let's completely floor them. Oh no, Nick's just left.
Oh. But yeah, that gets into another point I was going to bring up, which is that, you know, when you're writing battle scenes, it's usually not good to stretch it out really far with every single turn being described in lots of detail. It's usually good to get into summary and intersperse with, like, little bits of scene, which I don't know how much you guys know about scene versus summary, but it's like a writing technique that is good in general for people to learn how to use.
Yep, I was taught about that in honors creative writing class. I just sadly don't apply it as much as I probably should.
Wait, what is that then?
It sounds pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, so if you're in a scene, you're providing lots of details about, like, what's happening in that moment. You know, you're describing things in lots of detail and things like that. When you go into a summary, you're describing a long period of time in a shorter amount of words than if you're in a scene.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Yeah, so if you're in a summary, you could still give like details and things, but they might be details that describe something bigger or something that covers a longer period of time. Like maybe instead of describing like one footstep, you're describing the entire walk in a nice descriptive phrase or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like, they walked down for 30 minutes down the sunny path. That's a horrible sentence. Or you could, that's a summary. Well, you could say, like, each step in the painful, blistering heat was exhausting. I
walked past the hardware store, and then I walked past the grocery store, and like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, look how important this is. Okay, the rule that I remembered, it's a rule from, like, an old Russian play. If in the first act there's a shotgun on the mantle, someone has to be... What?
Chekhov's gun, yes. That's it.
Yes. Yeah, the shotgun's on the mantle, then by the end of the play, someone has to be dead. Or shot.
So it has to be used anyway.
Yeah. So, if you're describing something, make sure it's used. That's also important to things. Symbolism.
Right. I've seen a lot of like Pokemon fics, probably by beginning writers, where they describe in a lot of detail like their character walking somewhere, and then that's never mentioned again, and they leave that place really quickly. And I'm like, I thought that was important. Why did you spend so much time talking about it if you were just going to move on immediately?
Yeah, it's definitely hard because a lot of advice say detail everything. Detail everything that's important.
But you can still give detail in summaries if you do it skillfully enough. And that's, I know it's a skill that you have to learn, but it's definitely important to know what to slow down for and what to speed up for, and be able to give good descriptions even in the midst of when you're speeding things up.
Yep. Also, this might be little, okay, yeah, that's battle scenes. I'm trying to think if I have any more advice that we haven't talked about. I write battle scenes. I only write a couple per book because it's hard to find the sweet spot. You don't want to make them too short, but you don't want to make them too long. Mm-hmm. And it takes just a lot of practice to find a sweet spot. To describe moves, if there's ever like a really important move you want to talk about, I'd say look up the pictures in the game when they use the attack in one of the newer games, or even just watch an anime battle that you know has this move, or like look up Charizard uses Draco Meteor in YouTube, and hopefully something will pop up.
Wait, here's one. Don't be like, you can like skip a battle if you want to be really short of it, but don't just like have just like straight back and forth like Pokemon use this move, Pokemon use this move, without any description or anything like that.
Yeah, like give us a bit of a summary and say like they continue to order their Pokemon about and elements flailed. Like you don't have, that's what can replace the back and forth conversation with no other detail.
Yeah, or you can say, you know, Charizard used flamethrower again and again, flames spewing out of his mouth towards blah blah blah, whatever opposing Pokemon, until Charizard started to grow tired, and you can describe how that's looking like. And you know, that can be happening over a long period of time, but you're describing the bigger pattern of it rather than the smaller specifics.
Yeah, and it's not kind of like suddenly dragging the reader across the floor very tiredly.
Yeah, so don't shorten it by saying Charizard used flamethrower. Shorten it by talking about a lot of different moves and smushing them all together in one good description of everything.
Yes, agreed. And also don't forget, like, there's also, I believe, something you could put in when you're writing scenes is the excitement a character might feel. That's one thing I tend to see lacking, is that they won't describe how a character is feeling in the battle. They'll just start ordering them around. They won't like feel any empathy or disappointment when there's an attack. They don't describe their Pokemon how they're in the battle sometimes. Like, I've noticed people be like, that Pokemon does this and this. There's no point of saying whether they're exhausted or they have some sort of move of excitement in their step as they're using Bite. That's definitely, I feel like it doesn't have to be everywhere, but it's something to kind of slowly slick in there if you wanted to give a little bit more detail to immerse the readers.
And I'm also seeing a question about how do I even write descriptions?
Okay.
And I would say a good place to start is something like you just talked about, where you actually like look up scenes from the game or the anime, because the important thing is to get like a picture in your head of it, because that'll make it a lot easier to describe.
I have a great resource.
Yeah.
It's called descriptionary.com.
Oh, that makes sense.
I don't know if any of you guys ever heard of it.
I have not.
It's like a bunch of authors submit descriptions of like different prompts or words that you want to describe, and it basically inspires you.
That's
Interesting.
It's really cool, but that's something you kind of want to maybe teeter on being careful of, because it could
Could cause
copyright
procrastination. Yeah.
Well, sure. I think the important thing is to read it and sort of get your brain flowing in that same direction, not just
like
it.
how it basically like forms an image for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But I think it's a great resource. I use it a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I think the important thing is to get an image in your head of what you want and really focus on that image, and then think, okay, how would I describe what I'm seeing? Because, if you're just trying to describe a lamp, but you don't have any idea in your head of what that lamp looks like, it's definitely going to be difficult for you because you're just thinking, it's a lamp.
Google images of a lamp and see. You could get an oval-shaped one made of marble. You could get a weird one that's a bunch of balls stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, think about what kind of lamp.
Sounds
What
like
does
a
it look
cool
like?
lamp.
And then you'll be able to describe it much more easily.
Exactly. So, is there any more questions you guys see in the chat about battle
Yes.
scenes? Okay.
How can you make an alternate universe seem realistic? / how do
We're
I world
answering that
build
later.
effectively?
Yes.
Later?
AUs is in a couple sections. That's definitely a big thing we will talk about.
All right.
That's a Rose and Ember conversation.
All right. Should we maybe move on to the next one then, which I think is character voices with Ember?
Yes. Ember in the house.
Let me pull up my little notes. So, character voices can be very simply described as how a character speaks. Like, I guess you could go into more detail of that. And, my mind is still blank. Let me look at the notes. Basically just, whether they talk properly, they use a lot of slang, a really lazy way to do it is if they don't use contractions of words, and don't do that. That's just annoying.
Please use contractions. That's one thing.
I thought I had this planned out, and now my mind is one blank.
Well, during our practice call, you talked about characters like N, who have a certain way of speaking, and Guzma.
Yes. Characters, the two Pokemon characters that always come to mind that people seem to, misrepresent their voices in Pokemon fanfiction is, R, N, and Steven Stone. And with N, in the games, if you look at his dialogue, he always talks faster than everybody else. His dialogue always scrolls faster, but there's almost no mentions ever of him ever speaking faster than any other characters. And also he tends to, weave little nods to, scientific formulas and, machinery and stuff like that into his dialogue. Since he's a sciencey kind of guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the entire thing with Steven is that, he's very proper, has very dapper boy, and he speaks very properly, and it was really annoying writing his dialogue.
Yeah, and I think another good example, we were talking about Lola earlier, is how, because he uses a lot of Hawaiian slang and things like that, which other characters don't. So, you have to understand what the slang means, but he only uses a few specific phrases that would be pretty easy to pick up on if you just looked into it,
Yep.
But you can go into a lot more research about that if you really want to make it more authentic.
Right, but the point is there are certain characters who use words that other characters don't.
And it could be a thing that's regional, everyone in Alola, when you greet someone, does the hand motion. That's kind of something unique to Alola. If you go to Kalos, someone will probably say bonjour.
Kalos.
Calso.
Calso.
So, speaking of that, someone is asking if we have any advice about writing different accents without typing them out phonetically.
Okay.
I don't know, I just always type them out.
Yeah, usually a little phonetically. If Southern, just kind of put an accent and take out, if you could say, I've got the time, just do I've got, I don't know, it's weird. Someone else say this.
I think the trick is giving the suggestion to put it in the reader's head, but not overdoing it.
Okay.
Because I think that if you give just enough, maybe right after you're introducing the character so that they can get that voice in their head, then they can repeat it, even if you're spelling everything out correctly after that.
Yep. And maybe if you're doing for someone Southern, maybe this is, I know America best, if you're doing something like a Texas accent, you could just throw in words like ain't and Gotta. Instead of saying I've got to, I mean everyone says gotta, but...
So you're saying just research dialects?
Yes, just kind of like certain ways they might say words.
Yeah,
or
right, because there's more to an accent than the way the words sound.
Yep, also, I'm going to be right back. I've got to use the bathroom. I'll be back in a few.
Alright.
Yeah, I put you guys in charge. You guys know the schedule.
Everything's burning down.
Go right ahead.
Like, the most important thing that you should do when it comes, well, you have to do when it comes to writing characters or like their own voices is keeping it consistent. Like, there's nothing like establishing like a certain dialect or way of speaking at the beginning and then have it completely de-evolved by the end. Like, the only really, there's one example I can think of, and there's this one really famous Pokemon fanfiction called The Golden Throne, and great story all around, and one of the characters is like the king of the region that the story takes place in, and he was introduced having like the staple, really formal dialogue that a king should have, but by the end he was talking a lot like the younger characters were.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't get inconsistent with your book. You have to remember how you set up your characters.
And that's all I can really think. Like the PWL Pokemon Writing League, I wrote an article about character voices, like even with like more examples and such. So if you want to go look even more into detail about that, you can go check that out.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, again, is that this is something that a lot of people maybe don't think of, and all of their characters end up sounding like they do.
It's kind of fun, like, reading dialogue, and you don't have to see the dialogue tags with the names to know who's speaking.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a great thing. That's, great writers write like that, and that's something they always aim for. So, just different word choices, different ways of speaking. You can do it. You just have to spend some time thinking about it when you build your characters.
Yeah, I always aim for several different styles of speaking across characters, at least, because I feel like it adds a little more variety. I like it.
Mm-hmm. And it can help if you think about maybe someone you know in real life who speaks differently than you do, and maybe try to emulate their way of speaking, or someone you've heard on TV. Maybe if you're don't have a lot of people around you who speak differently than you.
Mm-hmm. And it also helps you in your personal development too, because it's all about that. And it's you learn about how people speak and stuff, and it's kind of enlightening.
Yeah, and it helps out for future stories.
Yeah.
That's all I really have.
All right, then we can move on to alternate universes and crossovers.
Fun! By the way, I'm back.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I came back like a second ago. Anyways, AUs, I'm better at alternate universes than crossovers, and I've only written one AU and then deleted it. So I'm not much help there, but I can talk about that. Anyone else have some credentials?
I wrote a terrible crossover in the past.
Cool, so we can talk about...
Oh, you're going to be helping me out with that.
So you're going to talk about what not to do?
Yes, that'll work out perfectly.
Oh, here's what you don't do. Okay, are you ready?
Let's wait until AUs. Let's wait until AUs are over.
Alright.
Fine.
So, AUs, alternate universe could be anything. It could be putting your main characters in a different time zone setting.
Time
period. Thank you. Different time period than where the game is from. So you could put it 300 years back, so they won't have the same technology and maybe even healing equipment that they have in Pokemon. Nurse Joy could be an innkeeper, or it's super in the future, and the Pokemon Center floats in the sky.
Yeah, I'm thinking of some examples of those that I've really enjoyed, like Poke Bronco fans books. He wrote some that were in tribal Hoenn, basically, where there's kings and queens, and they've got some really interesting connections to their Pokemon and things like that.
Definitely, yes. If you're definitely historical periods are definitely a big AU thing to do. Biggest recommendation is to do research. Research that time. Are you basing it off of Greek ancient times, Roman ancient times, which isn't very different, Viking ancient times? That would be pretty cool to read a Pokemon.
That would be such a cool Pokefic.
What region would it be, guys?
Or maybe we're just all cavemen,
It's a war
Oh my
against
god, all the
Pokemon.
tyrants and the tyrantrums running around.
And like there are
there's
Pokemon.
Kabuto not fossilized.
Oh, that would be fun.
Might even have a different type because they probably weren't all rock types from the beginning.
That's basically we're doing Jurassic World X Pokemon at this point.
We need that.
I think we just came up with a great idea, guys.
I think
Honestly, Pokemon.
Maple, you remember the idea I had where like we basically like construct a story on stream? We should do a Jurassic World X Pokemon.
So yeah, alternate world can be that, but it can also be like taking people from the Pokemon world and putting them into our world and things like that, right?
Yes, that's definitely something you can do. I've never tried that before, but one thing you'd have to cover is how it would affect the world. It's not like Pokemon suddenly plop and appear and everyone's like, okay. I can see that causing some problems, seeing that there's like...
It depends how you do it.
Yeah, that's unfortunately how it's done the most. They just plop.
I know someone from GRA was recently doing a private review of a story that had like all the characters from the anime in like a realistic high school, and the Pokemon aspect was done through Pokemon card battling, actually.
Oh, now that's really clever.
Yeah, and it was like a really awesome concept, which, you know, I feel like if people did things in a creative way like that, it could make for really interesting stories.
Yeah, it's figuring out ways to apply it, and that would definitely be really cool. Or it could be like main characters who are like the regular guy, like it could be them working at a game store where they just have like this MMO of Pokemon, and they have their characters look exactly like them.
That kind of reminds me of Little Tyrant's story, Reborn as Barry, where the main character was killed, and then he was like reborn, of course, as Barry, and he had brought like all his knowledge of like Pokemon and such into the actual Pokemon world, and people were getting confused when he was mentioning things like shinies and fortune shipping and stuff.
That's definitely cool. That's also something to be careful with. Like I've seen that in a few things where this main character like has the past their past life's knowledge when they go in. Like, Little Tyrant does a good job of applying it, but a lot of writers, when they do this, they seem to know already everything, and there's no confusion for the protagonist. So,
and that means that it's not such a great plot, because there's no tension in it, right?
Yes. Something to be careful of. It's maybe like you start putting plot twists in that, since they're in a new life, it's no longer a video game, so it's going to have some twists and turns they don't realize apply since it's their
like Reborn as Barry, wow!
Yeah, no, like Reborn as Barry does a good job, definitely. But there are definitely, I read Naruto fanfiction when I first got onto here, and there were a lot of OCs going into Naruto world that knew everything. But, definitely, it's having to be kind of doing your research. If you do, like, suddenly plot Pokemon in the real world, like, suddenly an Eevee appeared at the end of your bed, and you're like, what the actual F is this?
I love it!
I know. You gotta also remember that, like, there are probably gonna be a lot more other Pokemon in there, like, you know, Entei, whose roar causes volcanoes to erupt, Machamp, who can literally move mountains with his 4 muscular arms. This would definitely change the world, and there are probably some people who would be like, no, kill all the Pokemon! Kill them all! So, interesting story if you wanted to do that, but people won't just suddenly accept. So,
the amount of zombie apocalypse AUs actually surprises me.
I can see why it's popular.
It's an interesting idea.
Big. Okay.
I know, but it's like, it's a large amount of them don't really like, because okay, when I think of like zombie apocalypse AU, I think that it evolves somewhat from Pokerus. That's my immediate, like, I'm trying to draw some logic from it,
okay,
right?
That makes sense.
But I haven't read a book that draws that logic.
Well, a lot of people do know of Pokerus, but it's not as known since it's a very, very rare thing to occur in-game. So, guys, Pokerus is an infection that transfers to Pokemon. It says it's beneficial, but you can do more with this.
Because, like, every zombie apocalypse AU could just, like, because obviously, like, it's just kind of like a snap of your fingers and, like, the zombie apocalypse occurs. And it's like, there's a simple solution to it all. Just detail the fact that Pokerus mutated.
Exactly.
Like...
Like the common cold. It's okay, but it mutates. And the flu. Sometimes there's a nice strain of flu that doesn't kill you. Then there's another strain of flu that puts you in the hospital for like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The flu is never good for you, though.
Yeah.
But no, I can see where you're coming from. That also, I feel like, might start gearing up. It's almost 9 o'clock, guys. Do you want to move a little faster?
Oh, crap.
Whatever you want.
All right, so we're not going to talk about crossovers. How about we talk about motivating ourselves to actually
dang
write?
I made a bunch of notes just for this.
You could write an article and post it in one of your books.
True.
I can speak from personal experience on how to not write a crossover.
Let's throw Kat in to say that.
Okay.
Catch a view of A Tale of Friends in her review book, and then you will know all the things not to do.
Yes, I was about to use that as an example. I'm like, okay, say you want to write a crossover between Hunger Games and Pokemon, right?
Yes.
Right? You think, it's such a great idea. So you decide, okay, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna put Pokemon and throw it into Hunger Games. Like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Just don't, please.
It just that can make the world, like the world's backstory, like evolve over time. Having Pokemon in it and stuff like that. Did they come in there naturally? Did something happen where they just like plopped in out of nowhere, but actually try to explain why that happened? And if like you're doing like a universe or like a thing where monsters already exist, like different types of monsters, like did the Pokemon like take over these monsters? Did they somehow like crossbreed with them? Do they like work together or whatever?
Well, the main issue that I have with like just like kind of smushing those like crossovers together and just like meh, is that like you're not really being creative at all if you're throwing Pokemon into like a Hunger Games ring. You're not even transforming Hunger Games, like the concepts that it brings. So like it's basically zero creativity.
Crossovers are honestly really hard.
They can be done.
The reason the conflict in my crossover is happening is because that Pokemon appeared for this one thing, and the main characters are like, we're going to do this thing to make sure this thing doesn't happen again, and whoops, it's happening again, and now the main character has to go make up for the other things the past characters did.
Sounds like...
Also, there's an Aegis Slash of no humor, and it's hilarious, and it's my favorite thing ever.
Works. Alright.
I think I technically wrote a crossover once.
Ooh, tell us about it.
Well, it was a one-shot, actually.
Ooh.
And I wasn't actually thinking that it was going to be a crossover. I was just inspired by a completely different thing than Pokemon, and it ended up making its way into it. So I was actually in a one-shot competition, and I can't even remember what the prompt was, but it just made me think about this Edgar Allan Poe poem. So I actually ended up, like, using some things from the poem to inspire, like, these sort of creepy and Poe-esque aspects of a place that is in the Pokemon world. And I sort of, like, crossed it with, like, that Maiden's Peak episode of the Pokemon anime and some ideas from that. And it just ended up being, like, the Pokemon world with some aspects of Edgar Allan Poe in it.
That's still cool.
That's cool. Awesome.
Oh, wait, could you also maybe, for a crossover, you could take, like, an old Greek myth and then kind of put Pokemon characters or Pokemon in it and kind of change and alter it, like make it like almost so you can't see the myth but you can type of thing.
Mythology is a bit different though, because I feel like people allude to mythology all the time and religion.
This is true.
Right, but my point is like it's like having a dual inspiration, but it's also melding the two together in a way that seems natural, I think, is the key. It's not just like taking the one fandom and plopping it into the other and it feels all messy and jagged. It's like I created it so that it was like naturally there all the time, and it's just, you know, both things in one world that sort of made sense.
All right, yeah, that totally makes sense. All right, now moving on, since we have like 20 minutes left, we're gonna talk about motivating yourself to write, and all of us are just sitting here like, you know, distracting ourselves from writing.
I see someone in the chat too. I need motivation. Lots of exclamation points.
So the answer is, you don't have to be motivated. You just have to sit your ass down in front of the computer and type. You might have...
You do.
There might be, like, no words in your brain. Your brain could be completely empty. You could just have, like, Kill Bill sirens going on in your head. But... no.
But yeah, that's actually exactly what professional writers do. They have a specific time of day where they say, okay, I'm going to sit in front of this computer and I'm going to write. And even if they, like, don't end up writing anything because they just can't in that moment, they still sit there and they try their best to write, and they don't get up until their allotted time is over.
Yeah.
And that's how they train themselves to write. So, you know, if you actually keep doing that, it'll actually work out over time that you'll end up writing more and more because you're telling yourself, this is important to me, I want to do it, and you're not letting yourself go off and, do whatever internet browsing or whatever you want to do.
Yep. One thing my English professor had told me was just set an alarm for a timer to go off for 15 minutes. Not go off for 15 minutes, but set it for 15 minutes. And for those 15 minutes a day, just try to write something, a sentence even. And sometimes your alarm will go off and you're like, no. The main character's about to kiss blah, blah, blah. I need to get this done. And you'll end up going over the time. It'll actually get you writing. So write every day. Even if you're not even writing, just set time aside for it. Which I know people are going to say they don't have time for it. Which I'm going to say it's your prioritization.
Yeah, it's BS.
You can prioritize writing. If you don't...
You can make time for it.
to write.
Yeah, if you're really passionate about something, you will make time for it.
Exactly. Like, you're spending 4 hours watching Netflix, guys. You could be writing, you know. But it's also...
Don't give me that schoolwork bullshit, okay?
Schoolwork does kill me, but I was still, it's like, this is your thing, and you can prioritize it. You can cut out all of your friends from your life to do it.
Well, I wouldn't suggest cutting out your friends, but there are things that you can do to say, like, you know, this is something that's important to me, and I think that's another aspect of motivation. Think, you know, why do I want to do this? Why is it so important to me?
Yeah.
You know?
How about we just all just wake up an hour earlier and just
See, I'm not a morning person, though. If I wake up in the morning, it'll just be me writing. I'm not awake yet, and yeah, all the ums and buts there are all gonna be mixed in. Because...
Well, maybe you can write about a character that's tired as you're tired.
Oh my god, it's perfect.
Or maybe when you're angry, you write about a character that's angry.
I mean, when I was going through depression, I wrote about a character who had depression.
And that's actually something that works.
It does. But also, as we were talking about kind of cutting things out, distractions. The internet is a huge distraction.
Oh, you know what I do for this?
Do you turn off the router?
No, actually, I don't go that far, but it's because I have self-control. But anyway, you know, I feel like a lot of times what can happen is that you're writing something and you're like, oh wait, I want to just look up this, you know, what level does this Pokemon evolve at, or something that's related to your story.
Yeah.
And then you end up down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, sometimes you're watching YouTube videos about cats chasing laser beams, and you're like, how did it end up like this?
No,
right. So what I do is, if it comes to a point where it's like, okay, I want to do legitimate research right now, I actually just put a note for myself in there, say, okay, insert this here later, and I keep going. I don't do research and stop my writing.
That is smart. That is super smart, and I need to do that now.
What sucks too is, like, I'll be, like, researching, like, because, like, obviously Wikipedia is a great source to start with if you want to just, like, scroll down to the resources that they use.
Yeah.
But what will end up happening is I'll like, be on a page for, like, whatever. I'll be researching, like, recently I've been researching, like, executive federal agencies, right? And then they'll, like, the hyperlinks catch you, and then you go, like, down that little rabbit hole.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Wikipedia page hopping.
So if you're in a mood to be writing, don't stop your writing, even for research. Just put a note in for yourself and keep going at the next point where you don't need to do research. That's my advice.
Hold on. I typed something for the chat. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
I'm more of like, you'll see it in a few minutes on the stream. Anyways. Also, maybe this one thing gets you distracted easily too, but I know that if I'm just sitting trying to write, I get really frustrated and angry, and I just get so stumped, and that never really puts me in a good mood. So I read online people talking about meditating. I don't meditate. I actually go outside and take just like a walk around the block, and I'll come back, and it usually helps me. That's just kind of one of my personal things. It helps me take a deep breath.
I meditate in the shower. Meditating's actually a huge part of my schedule.
Definitely. I mean, if it works for you, I get more frustrated if I
don't meditate. Well, I'm sure like a lot of us like take time in the shower too and just like sit there.
Oh yes, yes. Shower's nice for that fact.
So in a way, I guess you're meditating. I guess like if you're just like focusing on like yourself and like water. Because water's soothing, apparently.
It always is. But I'm kind of rushing this, but we've got about like 13 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to say the next thing. Sadly, Eve couldn't be on here, and she wrote an entire piece about the overuse of shinies and legendaries.
Which we kind of got into already, so I think it's okay if we don't spend too much time on it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like there's a certain percentage, like it's more. I gotta read because like she had pulled up a few facts, and I was like very sad that I.
Oh yeah. She compared the percentage of like obtaining a shiny to like different rare events in real life.
Oh, that's awesome! I actually exited out of that, so if you guys could read it, or I can go looking for it.
I always use those arguments in like debate.
Well, I'm trying.
Like comparing percentages.
But yeah, hold on. I'm trying to scroll through it. I'm sorry. I'm just tired and I'm like dying. Okay, so it's a 0.0122% chance, according to the Pokemon Wiki, of randomly encountering a shiny, which is less than the percentage of getting accepted into Harvard, which is a 5.4% chance. Less than the odds of dying from a drug poisoning, and less than the odds of having 11 fingers or toes. Also, the odds are lower than getting an injury or dying within the next year. I think the injury means it's like it's separate, like you break your leg and then suddenly 2 months later you die.
The point is it's rarer than we're making it out to be in fiction.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
but
like,
it's happening in fanfic a lot more often than it would be if,
Or the shiny hunted.
And legendaries, there are only like 1 or 2 of in the entire world. So if you got a shiny Celebi sitting there chilling with the main character, like, let's do this, bro, and they've got telepathy and everything, they can talk. No. As this is something I had done in my past, in my first fanfiction I wrote, where I had a shiny Celebi that could talk. No.
Oh, the greatest evil.
Jesus, no. That's what I've got to say about that. Legendaries are rare and super powerful. You could.
Yeah, I only use it unless it's vital to the story.
Yeah, like you could.
Like as legendaries.
Yes, and like usually you'll focus on the region it's in. Like you won't suddenly have Arceus. I mean, you could see Arceus coming down. You won't suddenly have like. I'm trying to think of some. Lugia won't suddenly appear in Kalos like, "What's up, dudes?" Just being a bro.
Yeah. And like I will use it more as like divine intervention than like, oh yeah, let me just capture this person to be a part of my team.
Which should be used sparingly in any kind of fiction. You don't want Deus Ex Machina everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you're doing something that's based off of a myth, like with gods and such, then that would be a good way to apply it, where if it's a story about gods, you could do a story about legendaries, which would be cool, and it wouldn't be like Deus Ex Machina if it's based off like a myth in that idea, right. But if the trainer just has, Giratina, Mewtwo, and Deoxys just chilling with him in their main team.
What was the Lost Silver protagonist? What was her team?
I think it was
she had like a Giratina.
She had Giratina, talking
Charizard.
Her Meganium. I'm pretty sure she had Deoxys too.
Yeah.
And she did so many time skips. We just don't know how these Pokemon ended up on her team. We're just like, okay. We don't mean to bash the story. It was just like a moment where it felt like lost in more.
No, we do mean to bash the story.
You could get better. We believe in you.
Well, at least we said that we were enjoying it.
Yeah, we were. We had a lot
Please
of memories.
separate your dialogue. We're enjoying the story.
It was honestly a 10 out of 10 for enjoyment for me. Like,
Oh, yeah. Like,
Anyway, I'm looking at this sheet of notes that Eve wrote up, and she actually has a really interesting point about shiny Pokemon, which is from like a world building perspective.
oh.
And she's saying that, like, if you think about the biological standpoint with natural selection, Pokemon that are differently colored would stand out. And, you know, if you're having a world where different Pokemon prey on other Pokemon, which is suggested by, like, the Alola Pokedex and things like that, then if they stand out, they're probably going to get killed a lot more easily.
Albino.
So there's a reason that they would be really rare.
Yeah, think of it like an albino. You don't see albino moose very often or at all, but you'll see some pictures of it online and be like, if only. That's how shiny Pokemon are.
And then she's also saying that for predator Pokemon, that, like, you know, they're not getting eaten, but maybe they stand out so much that they're not using effective camouflage, and then they can't eat, and then they starve to death.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I don't know. There's a certain animal.
I'm sure Pokemon creators didn't think that far into it.
Sure, but if you're writing a story, that's an interesting way that you can think of it. And I brought it up because I think that it's an interesting way you can do world building if that's the sort of world you're choosing to create.
Oh, yeah. And it definitely helps you kind of put a realistic perspective in it when you're writing fan fiction. So.
Like, I definitely don't think you have to do things that way. Like, in my version, I never have Pokemon eating each other at all, because that's my preference, but
That's fair.
you can do things a lot of different ways.
I mean, if you read some Pokemon
I don't know, for
essays,
some reason I feel like... Have there been any instances, like, in the Pokemon world where they're actually eating, like, animal protein?
So, Wurmple's Pokedex...
Or are they all vegan?
In Wurmple's Pokedex, it says that they have to hide from Tailo and Swellow, who like to swoop them up and eat them as a snack. And if you watch the anime, there will be a point where you see Brock and Ash fantasizing about eating a Magikarp and how they would fillet it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
That
in
was
there.
an interesting episode.
Yep.
It would be interesting, though, if, like, the world actually trained itself to be, like, vegetarian or, like, vegan.
That's what they do in mine, anyway. They only eat dairy products and eggs.
Yeah, because that's Boo Moo Farm and stuff.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, and there's actual real fish in my world, like, not Magikarp, but, like, bass and things like that. I inserted that, which, you know...
Makes sense. Like,
I think that if you really want to push me on it, there's probably some shots in, like, the episodes of the anime that are, like, ocean and stuff that I think there are fish that aren't.
Yeah, there was,
in
like,
there.
real fish in, like, the earlier episodes of, like, the first season.
Yeah, within Misty's gym, you could see them swimming around in the back.
Yeah. Yes. So, in my world, it's everybody's pescatarian.
Makes sense.
But you can do it lots of different ways. I've seen good fics that, you know, have people actually, eating Pokemon, so it's up to you.
I mean, I had my characters eating a spoink sandwich. Because it was supposed to be
A what?
a spoink sandwich.
Spoink.
Like ham.
Because it's, like, beef equivalent.
I thought you said
Pork.
splink.
Or, no,
I'm like,
pork.
what's a
I
splink?
meant pork.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, it's hard because it was going to be Tepig, but then I was like, that doesn't really fit the generation, but there's no pig Pokemon in this generation. Let's just take Hoenn because that's closer. So.
Okay, splink, I'm sorry.
It's okay. No one's
All right,
Spoink's so
so
cute.
we've got just a few minutes left.
All right, do you want our closing remarks, guys?
What kind of closing remarks do we have?
10 out of 10, good stream. Would do again.
7 out of 10,
GRA.
too much, not enough trumpet.
Check out the GRA, listen to Hamilton, read Ember's books, follow Kat.
Oh, thank you.
Cheer on
Accent your
Nick.
E's.
You should actually follow me because I have 399 followers right now.
Someone
Well,
please
before
follow
you started
her
the
to
stream,
get
how do you know that you
400
didn't get
followers.
one already?
Give this poor girl a 400 follower. She needs
Oh, and if any of you guys end up writing anything, an LGBT book, send it my way and I will review it for you.
I don't know what I can review it too, but I don't know much. I'm an asexual
I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting.
bi-romantic person. So, how about Nyx?
Did you guys want to talk about Did you guys want to talk about what you're writing right now and just say hey, if you're interested in reading any of our stuff, this is what we're doing right now?
Yes. Let's do that. Let's talk about
I'm gonna just crawl into my corner since I'm writing general fiction.
Well, Kat, talk.
Well, some people might be interested in that.
Well, Kat, talk to us about your favorite book that you've written.
Knights of Arceus.
I recommend Velvet Crescent. That's one of my favorites of hers.
Everybody go look for Knights Without Arceus.
Yeah, what are you comparing it to? Maple Knights Without Arceus?
No, I'm comparing it to lots of other fanfics on Wattpad.
No, I'm talking about you're like Velvet Crescent's the favorite of mine. I'm what relative to what?
Relative to all the other Pokemon fanfics I've read on Wattpad, Kat. I'm complimenting you.
Oh, I thought you meant out of the books I've written.
No.
Alright.
I was like, there's only Knights Without Arceus to compare it to.
I mean, there's Monopoly.
No, I really like that book.
Monopoly is a bit of a struggle area when it comes to me, but I'll be good.
Alright.
Yeah, Rose, you're writing something right now, aren't you?
Yeah, it just got published recently. It's called Nightingale, and I kind of took the trope of the chosen one hero meant to save the world, and I made it into the chosen one to destroy the world.
Ooh.
I'm basing it off of the Norse myth of Ragnarok, which is
oh, that's actually really cool.
It's one of my favorite ones. So, you won't really notice it very well, maybe, because the main character is supposed to be Loki, but the main character is also blind. And yeah, the main character is blind due to an accident, and basically it's a modern Civil War era in Kalos that she's in currently. So yeah, maybe she'll defy her destiny and actually save the world. Maybe she'll actually be the one to destroy it. Who knows? I do, but
because you're the author.
Of course I do. Okay, how about Imber and Nyx? I know you two have some stories going on right now.
I have
sorry.
Pokemon kind of related ones. One's a short story that's going to be about Cynthia, but I hope that I can get out by the end of the summer. One is a slice of life called Our Forte, and it's going to be mainly focused around music and stuff, so I can finally put my 6 years up playing the viola to use. And the third one's going to be my crossover that I'm actually making pretty good progress on that I hope to get out by the end of the summer, because I really want to enter it in next year's Pokemon Waddies.
Go Imber! And how about you, Nyx?
Product. Okay, firstly, sorry for not talking much because my mom woke up. Yeah. And I'm really awkward. Okay, so basically I've been going on the deleting books spree lately, so I don't really much to talk about. But I'm currently writing in the interim. It's not much to talk about because there's only 2 chapters up.
Yeah.
And I'm planning an LGBT book, but that's it. Yeah, it's mostly it.
Ooh, this will be fun. We got this, guys. And then Maple, do you have anything in the works? Because I know you have one. I think I saw one in the works.
I have an ongoing one called Pokemon Rewritten, and that's basically going to be ongoing for an undetermined length of time because it's actually a retelling of the Pokemon anime. So it's sort of in a novel format, but not really. And I actually divided into episodes with subheadings instead of chapters. So it's, the TV show sort of goes on, and this is, as far as I'm aware, going to go on and on. And I hadn't updated it in a while, but I did update it just recently, and I have another chapter partially written, so I'm hoping to update it again soon. So it's a retelling of the anime, but with the characters older, and they're actually going to age and develop.
For once.
Wow! And it's also focusing on a lot of characters besides Ash. It's actually sort of an omniscient perspective, but it touches on everyone's perspective except for Ash. It touches on the perspective of everybody around Ash.
Okay, that's super cool.
So it goes really deeply into his mother in the first chapter, because she's like the only character who's there around him as he's starting his journey. And then you get into Misty, and I'm about to introduce Brock, so I'm excited for that.
I just remembered this short series I watched on YouTube, I think, that was like Ash writing letters to his dad. That was sad.
Yeah, so I've got that, and there's a lot more complexity to the world than in the original anime too, because it's written for an older audience as well.
Cool. That's something I'll definitely.
And I'm also working on something that's not on Wattpad, but I'm actually rewriting Getting Out of Fuchsia. So when that's done, I'm going to completely write it, and then I'm going to upload it and have a regular upload schedule for that when it's done.
Oh, that's super cool.
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, so I'll be rewriting Getting Out of Fuchsia. I'll upload that when it's done, and then I'm going to be moving on to rewrite of The Girl with the Chikorita.
Yeah,
finally a
I was
third
about to
book.
ask that.
Finally a third book, but it'll be based off the rewrite, not the current one that's out there.
Okay. So, I guess that's it. I'm gonna read all of your books.
I think so.
Okay.
It was really nice talking
Oh,
to you.
and if anybody wants to enter the GRA writing contest, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, that's coming up. It's gonna be
Oh yeah, I might enter.
Yeah, that would be great. We're looking for some more people. Should be
I really
exciting.
do want to
I'm
try and
considering,
enter, but
yeah.
I've already have so much stuff going on already that I don't need to be sidetracked.
And it's like, for me, it depends on the date because, like, yeah, exams.
Oh, okay. When are your exams?
Like, I think July and somewhere in August, September. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't have many people
Okay.
signed up yet, so it might be a shorter competition. Might not last until, like, later.
Yeah, that's true.
Will? Also, Pokemon Wadi Awards. Don't spam the judges with entries the last day, but I know all of you will, because that's what we writers do.
I mean, it wasn't okay. It was pretty bad when I joined the judging panel late due to emergencies and judges dropping out suddenly. But like, I had to read so many within a month. It was like awful. Don't do that, please.
Yeah.
Like,
So give the judges some time, maybe.
You got the summer, most of you anyway. Spend some time, finish up those books.
Polish them up. Get your name out there. Which I could rant about how people can get their name out there more. Participate. All right.
And think about it this way: if the judges read your book now, they'll be in a better mood than if you wait till the last minute and it's like they're stressed out.
This is true. All right. Are you guys ready to hang up?
Yep.
All
I guess
right.
so.
Good night, everyone, or good morning, whoever you are.